Hello, this is the Progressive Cynic, and in this video I will be talking about water shortages in major American cities. A recent report by NOAA has indicated that 11 major American cities could be facing extreme water shortages in the coming years. Many of these cities are in the southwest and are in areas where droughts have been an increasing problem. Um, 11 cities which are mentioned are Los Angeles, California, Houston, Texas, San Francisco, California, San Antonio, Texas, El Paso, Texas, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Cleveland, Ohio, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, the reason that these areas are going to be facing water shortages is not due to the fact that they don't have access to water in general. It's potable water, meaning Miami is never going to run out of water. In fact, they're facing persistent flooding. That said, they don't have the storage capacity underground in terms of fresh water in order to sustain their population. They have plenty of salt water, brackish water, and unpotable water, which means you can't drink it or use it for human consumption. But, I mean, that doesn't help unless you have significant desalination capabilities, which they have not put into place yet. Ironically, Miami is also going to be facing massive storm activity and flooding due to climate change, and it's very likely that Miami could be the next Atlantis, a city which is literally wiped off the map due to just flooding. It's basically going to, it's not going to sink into the ocean. The ocean is going to rise up to the point where it's impossible to keep the city operating as usual. This report indicates two things. One, climate change is going to hit the United States. It's already hitting the United States. We've known this for a while. We've seen increased storm activity and increased droughts in some areas, but this indicates that major population centers are going to be significantly affected in the short term. Water shortages are very dangerous because it leads to some extremely unpleasant complications for the population. People require water in order to stay hydrated, obviously, and when you have water shortages, there simply isn't enough, and people are either forced to import water from out of state or go without, or out of the area or go without. This increases the price of water and leads to people, well, getting dehydrated and sometimes dying if they're unable to afford the imported water. Obviously, this is a terrible thing, and it's something which we need to figure out a way to avoid. There is ultimately no way to stop the warming trend in these areas of the United States. It's a global problem, and it's global warming. This is the warmest decade ever recorded, and we're not getting any cooler. Aquifers are not able to replenish themselves, and so there's a water shortage because all the water is evaporated into the atmosphere because it's too hot. Or not too hot, it's hotter than usual, and so water doesn't stay in the ground. It just evaporates into the atmosphere and then goes elsewhere. Look, what we need to do is we need to work on the global climate change problem as a whole, and we need to mitigate these localized consequences of the larger trend. We need to start immediately looking into desalination and also into efficient ways of transporting water over large distances. The reason why bottled water is so expensive is that it's incredibly difficult and heavy to transport water in its liquid form. I mean, it's dense and it needs to be contained so it doesn't go spilling all over the place. This makes it fairly expensive to transport. Honestly, I don't know what the solution to this is going to be. But I think that we need to get scientists on this immediately, and we need to actually fund research into not only affecting change in regard to the actual climate, in addressing climate change, but also into finding new ways to cope with these water shortages. As a final note, the Southwest is going to be not only in for droughts, but for wildfires. An increase in the heat in the atmosphere leads to a situation where brush on the ground is dehydrated and the earth doesn't have enough moisture in it in order to prevent some ignition. This is why we have situations where we have these massive wildfires sweeping through California and Texas. These droughts are only going to lead to an increase in these wildfires, and many people are going to have their houses destroyed or die. It's a terrible situation, and as I've said before, we need to address it. Simply denying that climate change is a problem, or even that it exists, is no longer something which can be tolerated in people who have any amount of power over our government. This is a real problem, as real as any terrorist threat, and it is something that we need to start addressing before it actually leads to deaths. Thank you. This has been The Progressive Cynic. Please follow my blog, theprogressivecynic.com, and my YouTube channel. I will also be posting a link to this NOAA study in the description to the video.